I recently got an email from a woman who said that she had been diagnosed with severe anxiety and depression and some other disorders, and she tried yoga, mindfulness, self-compassion, grounding skills, and DBT skills. She saw doctors, she tried multiple medications, but still, she had so much anxiety that it made it hard for her to function in life. But, she said in her email, something did work: leaving her abusive husband. You see, the problem wasn't the anxiety in her head. The problem was the situation. She was married to an abusive man. He was physically abusive, emotionally abusive, and financially abusive for 17 years. In that situation, you could do all the therapy in the world, but the anxiety probably wouldn't go away because anxiety wasn't the problem. Anxiety was the messenger. And in this situation, it was delivering a truthful message. You aren't safe. And no matter how much coping she did or how much yoga and positive thinking, it wasn't going to change the situation for her. She said that when she finally left that abusive relationship, all of her symptoms greatly decreased. She continues to get support from her family, friends, and professionals, but she doesn't experience severe anxiety and depression anymore. Sometimes the best treatment for anxiety isn't psychological. It's not mindfulness or grounding skills. It's actually taking action to solve a problem. In this video, we're going to explore how to manage anxiety by solving problems instead of just coping with them. And in this whole section of this course, we're going to talk about how to listen to anxiety as a messenger, how to take action that gets to the root of the issue instead of just trying to change how we feel. With the surprising outcome being that it often changes how we feel. Okay, remember the function of anxiety. It's our body's alerting system. It's like a smoke alarm. It sometimes goes off when there's no danger, but when there's a real danger, when there's actually a fire, it doesn't do any good to keep silencing the alarm. You need to put the fire out or leave the house and make plans for fire prevention in the future. Anxiety can be a messenger. So one of the biggest problems is that people put all their energy into making their anxiety go away or making their stress go away. But the emotion was never the problem. Avoiding the emotion or avoiding the problem is usually the problem. So the question you need to ask is there a real problem? What is anxiety trying to tell me? Am I actually in danger? Or am I feeling in danger when I'm actually safe? If it's the latter, the previous two sections of the course, changing how we think and turning on the parasympathetic response, are a good way to deal with it. But when there's an actual problem to be solved, facing the problem is the absolute best solution. So one of the biggest problems with popular stress management advice is that it's all focused on reducing the stress response. It's all focused on relaxation instead of actually addressing the stressor. So if I'm worried about finances, maybe that's because I need to create a budget and a long-term financial plan and not just practice some breathing techniques. If you're stressed about your email inbox, don't just do a meditation. Set some boundaries. You can delegate, unsubscribe, determine which emails are essential to your role and which ones aren't. Take your work email off your phone or stop checking it at night. Okay, how about this? Does that one person drive you crazy? Instead of just doing a relaxation technique, perhaps you need to learn a new skill, like how to be assertive or how to set boundaries. Maybe you need to learn to communicate better or deal with conflict appropriately. The anxiety around that relationship might be a sign that something needs to change and that you need to level up. Now I get it, these may sound like trite solutions. I understand that the lasting solutions to these problems might be quite complicated. But the idea is you can't just manage anxiety by managing your anxiety response. We have to look at the stressors, not by avoiding them, but by facing and resolving them. And I want to emphasize this. Resolving problems is not the same as avoiding them. You can't just cut people off and use that as your only tool. You'll end up very lonely. You can't just avoid everything that makes you anxious because one, that shrinks your life down, and two, it feeds the anxiety cycle. Avoidance increases anxiety. So if anxiety is a messenger, and sometimes anxiety is trying to tell you that something's wrong, what do we do about that? We need to face problems and resolve them. So talk about how to solve problems like a therapist. Step Step number 1, write them down. Nick Wignall says, never worry in your head, right? You might be amazed at how much good that simple step actually does. Be specific and concrete. So don't say, oh, work is too stressful. Say, I get stressed out because we have so many projects at once and I don't know which one I should focus on. So I feel like I'm never doing good enough because there's always more to do. So by being more specific, writing down each project, exploring that feeling of never good enough, you'll give yourself something tangible to work on. We can actually, when we break down a problem, we make it clear, we can actually take action on each of those little problems. Okay, step 2, visualize what a positive outcome would look like. So be solution oriented. What would it look like when that problem is solved? For example, I would be clear on my responsibilities at work, and I would excuse myself from email conversations that don't apply to me. Or I would have clear set hours each week when I do and don't answer emails. Or I would know how much money I could spend. I would have a backup fund. I would feel out of debt. I wouldn't feel worried about money all the time because I would feel confident that I knew what I was doing. Or for example, I would communicate more directly with my mother-in-law. I would tell her what I do and don't like inside of my own home. Or I would ask her to call before showing up. So these are examples of outcomes, what we would see differently, okay? And you'll notice that I focus on what you can change, not on what you can't change. So when we visualize a positive outcome, it's not that helpful to just visualize like, oh, I would never have to work again because I win the lottery. Or my mother-in-law would magically be able to read my mind and do everything my way, right? We focus on what we can change and like the tiny steps to do them. We focus on the steps that we can take. Okay, number 3, overcoming mental blocks. So I bet when I brought up these solutions, you had an automatic resistance to one of these answers. You thought, that's not realistic, or that'll never work. So this is the third thing therapists do when they solve problems. We know how to identify and work around mental blocks. Now, most of us have a default way of dealing with obstacles. We all have a hammer, but when all you have is a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. And suddenly you're surprised when a hammer won't drive a bolt. So let's identify your mental blocks. What is your default response to problems? Let me just talk about some of the biggest challenges I see in therapy. The first one is, people don't have the skills to solve a problem, and they don't even know what the skill is called. So they don't know, for example, how to have crucial conversations, or they don't know how to be assertive, or they don't know how to set boundaries. The next big problem, the big mental block I see, is people are too scared to do what they want to do, or what they know they should do. They're letting their emotions make their decisions instead of their values. It's normal to be scared of change, and our nervous system prefers a familiar hell to an unfamiliar heaven. Third thing I see a lot of times in therapy is people just don't know what they really want. They haven't clarified their values. And then the fourth one is the thing that I think in therapy we do all the time as a therapist. People need support organizing a big, complex emotional problem. They need someone to help them get clarity. Essentially a sounding board with a whiteboard. Like I can't even imagine doing therapy without having something to write on, like a whiteboard or a clipboard, a piece of paper, where we take these problems and we write them down and we put them and we organize them. Because I think one of the most effective skills to solving problems is just learning how to break a problem down into small steps. So we might, like a lot of us might know how to do this in our jobs or at work, but I think very few people know how to do this with emotional or mental problems. So those are like the main things I see in therapy. Here's a few other common mental blocks. We can't see the real problem, or we're lacking perspective. So in that situation, we need someone to another perspective, like an outside person. A lot of times people avoid, ignore, or procrastinate when they're dealing with difficult issues in their life. Do you wait until things are in crisis before you address them? Sometimes we see toxic positivity. Do you just think positive to suppress or control your feelings and just hope it all blows over? Or maybe you revert to helplessness. Maybe you think, oh, but my boss will never change. Or I'm just a bad problem solver. I'll never figure this out. Or this problem is impossible to solve, right? Your thoughts are justifying you in your helplessness. They aren't true. They're comforting thoughts that you choose to believe because they excuse you from effort. Okay, do you blame everyone else for your problems? Like, oh, well, my boss is just a narcissist, he'll never change. Or the economy forces me to be poor. Okay, so what do we do with all of these mental blocks? The first thing I would say is like, we've got to ask for help. We've got to get an outside perspective. A lot of the time we don't even realize that our habitual blocks are even what's stopping us from solving a problem because we can rarely see our own blind spots. So this is a great time to get some support and another perspective, like an honest friend, a helpful family member, or a therapist, right? These can help you get perspective on the problem and break through your mental blocks. The other thing I often do in therapy, if an individual comes to therapy complaining about their spouse or child or parent, I try to see if they'll both come to therapy. Much of the time, the people we're struggling with are the exact same people we're unwilling to have a real conversation with. Okay, number 5, use a growth mindset. So when it comes to problem solving, the best thing you can do is to see problems as an opportunity to grow and learn new skills, to level up. So if your problem is, for example, not getting along with your coworkers, the opportunity might be that it's a chance to improve your communication skills and possibly resolve some arguments with your coworkers. Okay, so here's how we do this. We ask, what's the situation? And for example, my boss gives me too much work. And then what would I like the situation to be? I would like my boss to give me less work. What's the obstacle that's keeping me from my desired situation? I'm unsure of how to talk to my boss about my workload. Now, if you take every single problem and ask, what's a skill that I could learn from this situation? You'll almost always find something that will help you improve as a human being and make your life better. For example, I need to learn how to have better self-control with my budget. I need to learn the skill of assertiveness. I need to learn how to say no to people or how to clarify which tasks take priority. When you look at a problem as an opportunity to learn, you're going to feel a sense of hopefulness. Okay, number 6, get creative. Be honest, we get pretty lazy in solving problems. We like to try the same thing that worked in the past. But if the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem seems like a nail. You may think that a hammer is your only option, but there's actually thousands of tools, some of which you've probably never heard of. So this is where it can be helpful to brainstorm solutions. So make a list of at least 10 options to solve a problem, even ridiculous ways that you could possibly solve a problem. Write down any possibilities. Don't judge any of them, just get a bunch of variety. So let's try this with the overbearing mother-in-law. I'm just going to make a huge list of ideas. Cut her off entirely. Have a dance party with her. Print out a list of rules for your home and read them with her. Have a conversation with your husband and ask him to talk to her. Never talk to her again. Okay, I did not say that these were all good options, right? Move out of the country. Take a class on assertiveness. Read a book or 10 articles on mother-in-laws. Ask your friends how they would handle a situation. Have a really difficult conversation. Make a list of talking points and sit down with her and your husband and just really do it. You could also just send her a passive-aggressive text. Like I said, not all of these are good options. Send her a carefully thought-out email. Read a book on setting boundaries and set a boundary with your mother-in-law. Like, you may not see the kids if you undermine my rules at my house. Find a way to be funny and crack jokes with her. Do something she really likes. Bond with her. Schedule in her specific time. Let her know that she's wanted, but you decide when it happens. Give her more responsibilities. Include her in plans and ask her to contribute. Make her feel wanted and loved. Ask her to go to therapy with you or mediation or the climbing gym. Positive reinforcement. Tell her what you like when she does it. Okay, I mean, I get it, right? Like some of these are really bad ideas, but one of them might be helpful. And if nothing else, you won't be stuck doing the same thing all the time and feeling crappy about the situation. You'd be learning something with each experiment. Okay, number 7, take action. Just pick one to act on. Stop overthinking, like actually. So most people are afraid that they might have picked the wrong solution or that perhaps there's a better solution if they just think about the problem more. And this is usually not helpful thinking. It's usually better to act than to do nothing at all. Now, sometimes the attempts to fix a problem don't work, but you just learned something. This is forward progress. This is iteration. Don't be a perfectionist. If you really want to overcome decision paralysis, you could try this, right? Just rank the possible solutions in order from best to worst, rank each one on how likely is this approach to work, and then pick the most reasonable plan, put the plan into action. If it doesn't work, go to the next best solution and try that one. And then just continue to try until you solve the problem. Okay, so there's my approach to working through problems. This is how I solve problems as a therapist. I help people get really clear on the problem. We visualize what they do want. We work through mental blocks. We get support. We see every problem as an opportunity to learn. We get creative and we just try stuff. We just try one thing at a time and we learn from each experiment. So often with anxiety isn't the problem. When we shift our attention away from our hyper focus on our feelings and instead we focus on working toward the life we dream of, we can solve problems and actually resolve the root of anxiety. Okay, I hope this is helpful. In the next video, we'll talk about how to face our fears using exposure therapy.